Sorry I'm late. I had to talk with the father. Alright, so today is Testimony Tuesday, if I got the day right. Anyways, I just decided that I was just going to go out for a walk real quick, and I got something that I just wanted to talk about real quick. So we going back to the little hangout spot, and I'm gonna go ahead and talk to y'all real quick. Okay, so I wanted to talk about consistency and a bit of my testimony. So everyone who's ever known me knows that I've had depression for the longest time, a bit more than half of the span of my life. So 3 months ago, something happened. I made a poor decision and ended up falling back into depression. And I would say like I almost fell back into the void. That's probably like the best way I can put it. But this whole event that transpired had a very big butterfly effect on my entire life. I recognized that I needed to make some changes, and I started making those changes. Ever since then, I've haven't really felt any sort of depression. I felt sadness, but not depression. So the thing about this is needing to stay consistent, because I already know that if I stop doing what I'm doing, I will fall off and I will go back into depression. So I realized that, and this goes back to my the last video that I have made like years ago, with always evolving and always trying to become a better person. But not a lot of people are usually serious about this whole entire evolving and changing and always trying to change yourself to become a better person. Not a lot of people are staying consistent with that. It's really hard for people to always stay consistent with the things that they struggle with. Even changing yourself can be the biggest struggle. I've noticed that you can't do this whole evolution thing by yourself. You always have to do it with God. And that was probably like the biggest thing for me, not recognizing that I was falling off with staying consistent with God. So I had to get back on that. Luckily, that poor decision I made me recognize that I really need Jesus. So I've had to get back with him and then start changing myself. And this consistency has made me do a lot of things that I've never actually stayed consistent with, or I've never done. It starts with getting rid of bad habits and replacing those habits with better habits. Even doing the bare minimum can be very significant. And I think it's really interesting to me, because these are things that I've been told to do ever since I was a kid. Wake up in the morning, make up your bed, open your blinds so you can let some sunlight in. Just even those things have drastically changed the way that I move throughout the day. Just small things, and I think it's kind of weird. that I just never did it. Even my dad used to tell me that when you get up, get dressed as if you're going somewhere. I've just been doing that. I take one of my nice outfits or an outfit that I'm very comfortable in but looks good, and then I'll just put it on, and it will keep me from being lazy. I will set priorities for the day. I could tell you like the biggest thing besides just putting God first, I would say the second thing is just working out. A lot of people, I think, take working out for granted because it's something that is hard for them to do. Is like that's one of the biggest things. If God isn't hard enough for a lot of people to stay consistent with, it would just be working out. A lot of people just don't work out, and even I struggle with that to stay consistent with it. I would say it's very challenging for anyone to stay consistent with working out because no one likes to do it, and they usually expect results a little too fast. And you can literally put that in with just God Himself. You expect results from God a little too fast. You're not patient with it. Working out will cause you to actually have to be patient with the results that you're waiting for. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was keeping my word. Because even consistency can be part of keeping your word with certain things. Because recently, last week, I told all my viewers on YouTube that, hey, I would be posting my prologue for my podcast on Monday, and I did not prepare for that. I was prepared to go to my goddad's house and hang out with him, but I wasn't prepared to make sure that I would have my prologue to my podcast ready to go on Monday, even though he didn't come and get me. Staying consistent with even your words is just as vital as moving in consistency. Because if you're not staying true to your word, you're lying. If you say you're going to do something but you don't do it, you're lying. If you tell people you're going to do this and you don't do it, you're lying. Yes, there are certain things that can come into play that can make you not do what you said you was going to do. But depending on the circumstance, if it was unexpected, it would not be your fault. You will be to, you will be blameless for it. But if it's something that you are full in control of, you are at fault. Therefore, you just lied. Everyone knows that I hate lies more than anything, so I'm not going to beat myself up for it. But I am going to discipline myself to make sure that whatever comes out my mouth is going to be true to what I know I am capable of doing. Because if I don't do that, I'm a liar. Your consistency should be one of the most important things in your life. You're consistent to go to work every day. You're consistent to eat. You're consistent to do a lot of things that you know you shouldn't even be doing. You're consistent with that much. You might as well be consistent with things that you know are good for you. Good medicine don't taste good, but you know you need it anyways. Shouldn't you be just as consistent of that? But just because you don't like the way it feels or tastes, you don't want to do it, yet you know after it you're going to feel good. I find that to be kind of crazy how we're so okay, I'm gonna get scientific. Your brain works primarily off pleasure. Even the flesh, we can get spiritual with it. Your flesh loves pleasure. The brain loves it just as much. We get serotonin from the most easiest of things, and that can become dopamine, which becomes an addiction. So if you're so hooked onto dopamine, it's going to be hard for you to do the things that you know that you need to do that don't feel good in that present moment, which is why a lot of people can do bad things so easily because they know that it feels good. You're hooked onto the dopamine effect. You're hooked onto that serotonin, which is the chemical in the brain that triggers pleasure, which is why your kids love sugar so much because they get that instant gratification. They get that instant hit of dopamine. A lot of things that we love doing, playing video games, um, being hooked to your phone, that social media. Social media is a really big hit of dopamine. That's probably like one of the biggest things. Intercourse, a lot of people are hooked onto that, and that's also one of the biggest hits of dopamine that you can get. We're consistent to do those things, but something as simple as, or even challenging as working out, that makes me feel good after I do it, it's hard for us to stay consistent with it because they know that in that present moment that you're working out, it burns, it is hard, and you have to continue to push yourself. But you know right after you're going to do it, you know right after you do it, you feel really good afterwards. And that's what I'm trying to get my brain hooked onto, that feeling of after I do it. I've been working on my abstinence of doing certain things that I know that I shouldn't be doing at the present moment. I could tell you that some people think that I'm hooked to certain things, but I'm not. And this is just a little bit of poetry right here. I'm trying to become the mind outside of mind of man. I've had enough with the obsessions of man. We're too obsessed with the things that we're not supposed to be obsessed with. I don't consume as much sugar as I used to. I've changed my diet. I've started doing a lot of things just so I could be different. Not be different to sort of brag about it, but to be different because I know that being different is what God has intended for me to do, because I know that that is what we're supposed to do in the first place. We're supposed to be different. We're supposed to move differently. A lot of people don't like to see me move differently because they always want me to catch an L. Yet all I've ever really been doing up to this point is been catching W's. I've turned my mistakes, my poor decisions into straight W's because everyone wants me to catch an L. Sometimes your parents want you to do things in a certain way, yet what the things that come out of your mouth is, you want me to catch an L because I'm moving in a different way that you never intended me to move. You want me to change because you don't agree with the things that I've been doing. Yet sometimes all you're saying is, I want you to catch an L. I don't want you to do this. I want you to catch an L. That's all I end up hearing afterwards is, you just want me to catch an L. You don't agree with X, Y, and Z, but if God didn't tell you to say that, you're speaking from a whole different area. I started surrounding myself with, you know, people that are very intelligent, more intelligent than me. I learn from them. I can say this much. I've been watching this person's consistency to do bad things, yet just recently, probably like last month, he has completely changed his life to devotion for Christ. I've been following this man for a good 3, maybe 4 years. And to see him do a whole U-turn and go straight for the Lord is probably the biggest things that it's probably the biggest thing that I praise God for. Because I admire this man's drive. This man had a great drive. He's always been doing the things that he says that he was going to do. And even if he fall off, he just gets right back on it. Now I'm going to see him become a full Christian and start preaching, or start teaching the Bible in the perspective that he sees it. Probably the biggest thing ever. Love it. And I continue to start surrounding myself with more intelligent people because I've always known that I like knowledge and I always like to get knowledge because I just like to obtain knowledge, history and reading and all the other stuff. I like it. I don't like school, but I like the human mind. I like anatomies. I like the process of working out, knowing that whatever I put into my body, I know the effects that it's going to have on me. A lot of y'all don't pay attention to that. What are you putting inside you right now? Matter of fact, pop quiz. What does bread do? A lot of y'all will probably say it fills you up, but do you know exactly what bread does? If you don't know, I'm gonna tell you. Bread, or at least the way that it's processed, has a inflammatory effect, which means that your body has a hard time processing bread. Probably not bread from the Bible, but bread itself that we consume to this day is processed and it's inflammatory, meaning that your body has a hard time breaking it down and it turns into fat, and then it continues in the cycle, and it will just continue to make you fat the more you eat it, which is why I just started having an abstinence for bread because I just don't eat it at this point. If I do, it's every once in a while, and if I do eat bread, I'm eating it with something else that's anti-inflammatory, like avocado. Olive oil, if you don't cook it, it's anti-inflammatory, which is why I put olive oil inside my salads because it's more anti-inflammatory, which means that it's also going to make sure that I do not have more fat than I need to. Working out, simple as that. That will also help. Fasting, if you fast, which a lot of y'all Christians love to do, but y'all don't do it as much, is also great for losing weight. Just a quick educational little teaching that I just did right here. But this is something that you also have to be consistent with. It's all about consistency. Consistency should be a part of your life every single day. You should always continue to do it. But I also really wanted to say this much right here when I was talking about the parents. Parents, you have been taught to, and I'm pulling this from a guy that I watched. So I want to know if I can say it as good as he said it. We've all been taught to think a thought from the thoughts of others. So now that we've grown up, we now think the thoughts that we've been taught to thought, that we've been taught to think, and now we think those thoughts that aren't our thoughts, but the thoughts that other people have taught us to think. We don't think for ourselves, so now we're just going based off the thoughts of others that we've been taught to think. Our thoughts are not original. It's not straight up from us. It's been what we've been taught, which is why I'm trying to become the mind outside the mind of man. I want to think purely off God. Or at least what God wants me to hear and what God wants me to know. But I have to stay consistent with it. I have to move in a consistent manner to where I can continue to do that. Because if I don't, I risk falling back. I risk going back into the place that I was not supposed to be in. I risk going back into depression. I can tell you this much. Ever since I started being consistent, and I said this before, not a lot of people like the way I move, and a lot of people don't know how to act now that I move differently. I stopped talking to a lot of people. I've already done that, but I stopped talking to a lot of people, but the only reason I stopped talking to those people was because I didn't like the way that they moved with me. They hurt my feelings. Now I just go back and check on them just to see how they're doing. That's about it though. It's no ulterior motives. Honestly, I could care less whether or not they are consistent with me and talking to me. But I know that I'm consistent with a lot of people. I'm consistent with them to talk to them because I will know their potential that they have, and I know who are my real friends. I'm consistent with those people. I won't say that I'm as consistent with the other people because they're not consistent with me. I like to give energy that I receive in return. But even if I don't have that, even if I don't receive that energy now, usually what I end up doing is I still check up on them every once in a while, because I know that that's what God would want me to do in the first place. I know that they would actually appreciate it. I don't need that appreciation in return, though. I don't need you to do the same for me. I just like to make sure that you're doing okay. That's all. You need something? You need to rant to me? You need to talk to me? No? Okay, cool. You're doing okay though? All right. I'm gonna stay consistent with that because I know that that's what God would want me to do. That's all. And I'm gonna stay consistent with that because I've already spoken it. Now that that's my word and I've spoken that, I'm not gonna take that back. What God usually says doesn't return to him void, and I'm not gonna say usually. That's exactly how he said it. So I wanna do the same. Because what's the point in speaking something if it's gonna return unto you void, right? But that's just my testimony Tuesday for now. Stay consistent. If you grasp anything from what I just said, it's just to stay consistent with the things that you do. Do what God intended for you to do, not what you want to do. Because a lot of things that we want to do and we think is good, God is not blessed. I said that during the Sabbath. Also got that from someone else as well. Just stay consistent. That's all. Just keep your consistency. If you're going to say something, make sure that you can do what you say. Otherwise, you're a liar. And that is my testimony Tuesday. Make sure you follow God and stay unfitted.